Hey, it's James, Father's Rights and Resources. Hashtag how I got custody. A lot of people reach out to me or DM me or text me, email or whatever, and say, hey, I have an attorney, but I just have a quickie question, or can you give me some advice on this? And they have like one issue, as if that's all they need to know, or that's all that's important, or that's the one thing that they need help on or something. First of all, you need to know everything about your case. If you're a quarterback of a football team, you want to know the entire playbook for when a play is called. You want to be totally prepared for the other team for everything. If you're a salesman, you want to be able to answer every single question about the product that you're talking about, right? So why would you go into your custody battle not knowing everything that you need to know and not knowing the strategy from beginning to end? And if you have an attorney, think about this. You have somebody with a PhD in the law. Now, most attorneys are idiots and buffoons, and most attorneys come out of law school not knowing how to do anything, and they get trained at their law firm how to actually start doing what they're doing. Anybody could, if you understand English and know how to read and write, anybody could walk into a law firm and get the training that a lawyer gets and become a lawyer. The whole thing is a big scam. It's a 3-year bullcrap scam. The bar, the LSAT to get into law school is stupid because it's a bunch of logic tests, and attorneys half the time don't even use logic. And then you got the bar exam, and most attorneys end up practicing like one specific area of law, and they quiz them on general stuff on a bunch of other areas, a bunch of areas of law. But it still doesn't get down to, if you know the books on how to fix a car or fix a bike or ride a bike or drive, if you know all the rules and stuff, once you get behind the wheel and you actually do it, it's a whole nother story. Just because you can memorize some stuff on paper doesn't mean you're going to be effective in real life. That being said, some of you guys rest on this security of having an attorney. Then I got the polar opposite in some of the comments. People say attorneys suck, and we should do something about them, or whatever. And they just complain. Well, what are you doing? I had somebody on YouTube say that you can sue an attorney, a judge, and whatever when they step outside of their authority. They don't have immunity anymore. That's a great point. Only like 0.0001% of people have ever tried to sue an opposing. I sued a guardian ad litem. I took a opposing attorney twice to restraining order court because he was harassing me in violation of law and stepped outside the law. And it was crazy what those judges said, but I still dragged him in court and hassled him and made his life miserable. Now, he partially got off on it because he gets sexually aroused with any kind of challenge of how to beat the system. He's a sociopath who gets off on it. And that the opposing attorney I had was probably the craziest attorney I've ever seen. And I know a lot of you guys say that, and I tell you, hey, you don't have the craziest attorney. Well, I did have the crazy. You might have somebody as crazy, but there's nobody crazier than this dude. He used to lose cases on purpose and for women clients, and they would go broke, and he says, yo, you poor little thing, you can come live with me. And then they would say, well, what about my bill? I lost my job, and this whole thing is consuming me. And he would set it up where they would be totally destitute. And even lose their kid and get traumatized. I talked to one of his victims, and she said they were at a deposition, and he didn't defend her at all. Like, he was working on another case on his laptop, and she's answering questions, and she's leaning over like, Don, are you going to object? His name's Don Farrell. He lives at 4127 Northeast 96th Street in Seattle. That's his home office. And so watch out, sexy deviant pervert on the block, although all the neighbors love him because they're such oblivious idiots. So, and I've been protesting in his neighborhood, and they think I'm crazy because I pointed out his sexual harassment of women, and they thought that's impossible. So he'd force them to live with them, basically. Not, he wouldn't force them, but he'd put them in a situation where they're broke and destitute. And then they would say, what about how do I pay off this $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 attorney fee bill? He said he would have them do, he goes, you could do legal secretary work in my home office and work off your bill. So he set the whole thing up so he had free slave labor, a free labor force of a legal secretary in his home office to do a bunch of work for him. And then I reported that to the bar, and because one of his clients sued him for malpractice, and she didn't follow the invite, and she found out he did that to 20 other women. I reported that to the bar. They said, well, that's a malpractice suit. We only deal with ethical violations. So anyway, when you have an attorney, because they're supposedly got a PhD in the law and know everything, you should know the entire strategy. You should know the entire playbook. You should know the entire product you're dealing with and paying that. You're paying more money for this than any service you've ever had. Yet, if you go in and say, I want a lube oil and filter on my car, and they say, hey, your car needs $4,000 worth of work, and you would say, what the heck for? And you might even go in so they can point out what's wrong. There's some valves that are messed up, some wiring, the brakes are bad. Or you go in, you got brakes, but it's not just the pads. You got rotors and other issues and stuff, or maybe you got a brake line problem or whatever. You would ask them for the whole game plan before you pay the money. But when it comes to an attorney, we just give them $5,000 to $10,000 up front and blindly trust them, and then they totally screw us, and they keep us in the dark, and they don't answer our phone calls, and they say, well, if you want me to stay on board, I need another $5,000. We go, okay, here you go. I knew not to get an attorney the first time I had a consult when they said you'll get every other weekend. I'm like, F you. You got to be out of your damn mind thinking I'm only going to get every other weekend. How are you an attorney saying I'll get every other weekend? I live 3 blocks from the child. And then I went to court and got 5 days a week on my own. I have a video on my YouTube channel that nobody ever watches on Goldberg and Jones. I tell the story of that. I have a section that talks about corrupt attorneys and judges. Goldberg and Jones is on there. Also, Divorce Lawyers for Men, this scam of a network in Washington State. So, like I've said in other videos, you need to know everything. So if you're calling or texting me and you want a free consult via text message, I don't do that, first of all. And I got people crying, pissing, and moaning saying, F you, you're a punk, you're a bitch, you got bullied when you were younger, how come you're not available for people, when we call. Somebody called me on a Saturday when I was shooting a high school basketball tournament and extremely busy, tied up for that. 8 o'clock p.m., Saturday night, and I look down, and there's a message. And this person was like, what the F? How come you're not answering? And I said, do we have an appointment? And then she said, no. And then she goes, she's calling on behalf of her boyfriend, if it's the right person I'm thinking of. And she's like, no, but you keep telling people to call you, and I called you, and you're not answering. I said, look, you crazy psycho witch. I'm not on call 24/7. I'm telling people when you need help, call and set an appointment. I swear I'm dealing with some crackheads sometimes. Anyway, you need to know everything. If your attorney doesn't give you the game plan, what they're willing to fight for at trial, some of you guys have trial coming up and you think it's a motion for a temporary order. Or you have a temporary order hearing, you think it's trial, and you're not even consulting with your attorney. You don't know what the strategy is. You don't know what exhibits to put together. You don't know what the plan is. Your attorney hasn't talked about discovery. Have you asked your attorney the questions about doing a deposition, going for full custody? How many times have you helped a dad get 50-50 or full custody? Why don't we get on the offensive? What are all the options since we lost at the last hearing, like reconsideration? You're totally in the dark. And then you come across one issue like, oh, I need to answer that issue. No, you need an answer to all the issues. That's why a minimum consult with me starts off a minimum an hour up to an hour and a half. That's why I do my flat fee. Everybody needs that. If you don't know everything you need to know on your case, you're totally lost because you need to know